What if the ultimate secret to productivity, resilience, and like genuine inner peace is actually hidden in the most annoying passive-aggressive slang phrase in the English language?
Oh, man. I know exactly the one you mean. It's the one we all secretly hate hearing.
Right. Seriously, think about it. Today, we are looking at why the phrase "it is what it is" isn't just a sign of defeat or, a throwaway comment when a meeting goes entirely off the rails.
Yeah, it's so much more than that. It is actually the direct translation of a 2,500-year-old psychological framework.
Which is just wild to me.
Totally. And it completely redefines how we interact with reality.
It's a remarkable translation, honestly. It bridges this massive gap between ancient philosophy and modern behavioral science. We are pulling today from the teachings of Buddhadasa Bhikkhu, who was a highly revered Thai Buddhist monk from the Swan Mock tradition.
Yeah, and for those who are, familiar with the landscape of Eastern philosophy, the Swan Mock tradition is super notable.
I was
Well, because it strips away a lot of the mystical, esoteric rituals that often get layered on top of Buddhism over millennia. It's a forest tradition.
Okay, so what does that mean practically?
It means it is grounded in extreme, almost brutal pragmatism. It's all about what actually works right here, right now.
Which is exactly why we are tailoring this deep dive for you, the listener. Because if you're trying to stay well-informed and emotionally regulated in a world that feels increasingly unhinged, you don't need abstract poetry.
No, absolutely not. You need a cognitive architecture that holds up when things go wrong.
Exactly. Like when you lose a major client, or I don't know, when your flight is delayed for 6 hours,
Yeah.
or when you are navigating a massively complex interpersonal conflict.
Right, real-world stuff. And Buddhadasa Bhikkhu was famous for taking these incredibly dense, multi-volume concepts and distilling them down to a single, devastatingly simple point of application.
And the core focus of the sources today centers on a single Pali word. It's tathata, T-A-T-H-A-T-A, pronounced tathata.
Yeah, tathata. And this is where the translation becomes just so crucial. Because in academic circles, tathata is usually translated as suchness or thusness.
Suchness, I mean, what does that even mean?
Right. Let's be honest, it is practically useless in a modern context. It sounds like an archaic riddle.
Yeah, I wouldn't know what to do with suchness on a Tuesday morning.
Exactly. But Buddhadasa Bhikkhu bypassed that academic stiffness entirely. He translated tathata into a Thai idiom that maps perfectly, almost shockingly well, to the English phrase. It is what it is.
It's almost funny. It sounds like a joke at first, like I hear it is what it is when a sports team loses a playoff game by 30 points and the coach is just shrugging his shoulders in the post-game press conference.
Yeah, or when someone drops a tray of coffees on the sidewalk.
Right, it has this cultural baggage of apathy, like, oh, well, nothing matters.
But our goal today is to strip away that baggage and show you the underlying mechanics. Because this philosophy is the exact opposite of giving up.
So it's not apathy at all.
Not even a little bit. It is actually about seeing the physics of reality
Yeah.
with such absolute clarity that you stop wasting your metabolic energy fighting ghosts.
The word physics is, I think, the perfect starting point here because to understand why Tathata works, we have to look at another concept, right? Adapakiyata.
Yeah, Idappaccata. This is the fundamental law of nature in this framework.
Sure.
It represents the strict, unyielding mechanics of cause and effect.
Like hardcore cause and effect.
Exactly. It's the principle that dictates when a specific set of causes and conditions are present, a specific result absolutely must follow. There is no negotiation whatsoever.
It's Newtonian. It is essentially ancient determinism, like
So
gravity.
it's a perfect example.
Gravity doesn't pause to consider if you are having a terrible week, right? If you drop a glass, it shatters on the floor. That is the mathematical outcome of the situation.
The universe possesses a specific logic, a sequence of events that unfolds based purely on inputs. And the friction, the core reason why human beings experience psychological suffering, is that this natural law completely and utterly ignores our desires.
It just doesn't care.
It doesn't care about your preferences, your sense of justice, or how hard you feel you've worked. We suffer when we demand that reality bend to our personal wishes.
Instead of acknowledging that reality is merely bending to its own preceding causes.
Precisely.
I mean, we look at a situation that was produced by literally thousands of overlapping variables, and we get furious because the output doesn't match the specific narrative we had in our heads.
We throw a tantrum because reality isn't obeying our script.
But, okay, I have to push back on this application of it is what it is, because if we equate it to determinism, doesn't it just become fatalism?
Well, that's the danger, yeah.
Like if I am trying to build a startup or fix a deeply broken marriage, I cannot just look at the wreckage and say, well, cause and effect, I guess I'm doomed. Let me frame this with an analogy.
Yeah. Okay, let's hear it.
Let's say I am baking a cake for a friend's birthday. I'm rushing, I'm super distracted, and I accidentally grab the salt instead of the sugar.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I pour 2 cups of salt into the batter. I bake it, pull it out, and take a bite. It tastes horrific.
Naturally.
Now, I can't just stand in my kitchen, stare at this salty cake, and try to use the power of positive thinking to, like, wish it sweet.
Right, because that's denying cause and effect.
Exactly. The cake is what it is, based strictly on the ingredients I used. But does Tathata mean I just eat the salty cake, except I am a terrible baker, and surrender to my fate?
No, and that analogy perfectly isolates the trap most people fall into when they encounter this philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
The text is definitive on this distinction.
So it's not fatalism.
Tathata is actively separated from fatalism.
Mm-hmm.
It is absolutely not about surrendering to fate, and it's certainly not about forcing yourself to eat the salty cake.
Good, because that would be awful.
The phrase Buddhadasa Bhikkhu uses is that we must be smart about causes and conditions.
So being smart about the ingredients, essentially.
Exactly. When you look at the salty cake, applying Tathata means you say, it is what it is salty because I poured salt into it.
You're acknowledging reality.
You are acknowledging the unyielding law of cause and effect without layering emotional judgment on top of it. You do not suffer over the fact that it isn't sweet.
Because demanding a salted cake to be sweet is a cognitive distortion.
Right. It is a complete denial of reality. Being smart about causes and conditions means you understand that if you desire a sweet cake in the future, you must change the input.
You manage the causes.
Yes, you rigorously control the ingredients, the oven temperature, and your own focus while baking. While fully accepting that once that batter is in the oven, you cannot magically alter the outcome through sheer willpower.
That is a massive paradigm shift. It moves your entire locus of control.
It really does.
You shift all your psychological energy away from desperately wishing for a specific result, which is just a recipe for anxiety, and you dump all that energy into carefully, meticulously managing the actions that generate the result.
You align yourself with the mechanics of reality instead of trying to override them. You are operating within the laws of physics rather than trying to perform magic.
I love that. Operating within physics, not magic.
You do your part by setting the conditions, and the universe does its part by executing the outcome. Whatever that output happens to be, it is what it is.
And if you connect this to modern cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, there is a striking parallel here.
Oh, absolutely. The crossover is huge.
In CBT, a major goal is identifying cognitive distortions, specifically should statements like the world should be fair or my boss should recognize my talent.
Those shoulds are incredibly toxic.
Because they are basically arguments with reality. When you say something should be different than it is, you are essentially saying that the law of cause and effect is broken, which is incredible hubris.
It is profound hubris, and it just guarantees frustration. Tathata dismantles the should.
It replaces it with what?
It replaces this shouldn't have happened with this happened because of X, Y, and Z.
Okay, that makes sense.
And this brings us to how we operationalize this as a universal antidote to the massive emotional fluctuations we all go through. The text details a dual application.
A dual application.
Yeah, using Tathata to process both the tragedies and the triumphs of life.
Let's start with the tragedies, the bad events, because I feel like that is where our minds naturally go when we talk about resilience.
Definitely.
When a crisis hits, a sudden layoff, a painful divorce, a scary medical diagnosis, our biological instinct is panic. We throw a tantrum, we fall into a deep spiral of grief, and we literally scream, "Why is this happening to me?"
Which is, again, the cognitive dissonance of denying reality.
Yeah.
We are demanding the universe reverse its outcome simply because the outcome is painful to us.
Right. But when you actively deploy the mantra, it is what it is, you force a wedge into that emotional spiral.
You really do.
You begin to contextualize the tragedy not as a targeted personal attack by a malicious universe, but as the natural intersection of compounding factors.
Yes. A company over-leveraged its debt during a high-interest period, so layoffs were the mathematical result.
Or two people fundamentally stopped communicating their core needs over a decade, so the marriage dissolved.
Exactly. And it is so important to note that acceptance here does not mean approval.
Right. Acknowledging that the layoff was a mathematical certainty based on corporate debt doesn't mean you have to throw a party about losing your job.
Nobody's asking you to be happy about it. You are completely allowed to feel the grief of the loss.
But what you bypass is that secondary layer of suffering, right? The agonizing loop of this shouldn't be happening.
You strip away the outrage, because the outrage comes from feeling cheated.
Wow, yes. Feeling cheated by the universe.
But when you see the causality clearly, you realize you weren't cheated at all. You simply experienced an effect. It cools the temperature of the panic and stops the hemorrhage of mental energy so you can actually figure out your next move.
Okay, that logic tracks perfectly for surviving the bad stuff. It acts as a shock absorber. But I was reading ahead in my notes here, and this next part feels completely counterintuitive.
I know exactly what you're going to say.
The sources explicitly state that tathata must also be applied to good things.
Yes.
When we experience massive success, when a project goes perfectly, when we get a huge promotion, we are supposed to neutralize it by saying, it is what it is.
That's the instruction.
Why on earth would I want to neutralize my own joy? It feels like we are advocating for emotional flatlining, like just being a robot.
It does feel paradoxical at first glance. I totally get that. But if we look at the psychology of success, it becomes super clear why this is necessary.
Okay, explain that.
Success is epistemologically dangerous.
Huh?
When we experience a major win, if we lack this framework, we almost immediately become arrogant.
We think we're geniuses.
Exactly. We fall prey to the self-serving bias, where we attribute the success entirely to our own inherent genius. We think, I am brilliant, I have mastered my industry, I will always win.
We suddenly believe we are the magical exception to the rule. We forget that our success was the result of a very specific, incredibly fragile alignment of causes and conditions.
We start confusing temporary conditions with permanent traits. That is the exact trap.
You forget the role of, like, market timing or the support of your team, the economic environment.
Or just plain luck.
Right, luck is a huge factor, but we become deeply attached to the identity of the winner.
And here is the brutal truth of the natural law. Conditions always change. The wheel always turns. If you do not use tathata to ground yourself during the good times, you will cling to that success. You will integrate it into your ego. And when the variables shift and the success fades, which it mathematically must, the psychological devastation will be absolute.
It's the hedonic treadmill mixed with toxic ego.
Yeah.
So by looking at a huge financial windfall or a major award and calmly internally stating it is what it is, you are consciously reminding yourself of the mechanics.
You're pulling yourself back to reality.
You are saying, this beautiful thing happened because a specific set of temporary causes were met. It is not a permanent state, and it does not elevate me to the status of a god.
It acts as an anchor. The thematic through line here is that the ultimate goal of tathata isn't just surviving tragedy.
What is it then?
It is about cultivating a profound, unshakable equilibrium. It prevents you from being crushed by the inevitable failures, and it prevents you from being blinded by the inevitable successes.
You build an emotional fortress.
Exactly, a fortress of equilibrium.
Which naturally leads into a concept that I found to be the most challenging part of the source material.
The sunyata concept.
Yeah, once you start viewing every single event, the good, the bad, the neutral, as just a swirling intersection of causes and effects, something radical happens to your sense of identity.
It really does.
The text introduces the concept of sunyata, which translates to emptiness, and it is framed as evicting the self from the situation entirely.
Sunyata is arguably the deepest psychological mechanism in this entire philosophy.
Yeah.
But when we say emptiness, we have to be very careful.
Right, because it sounds depressing.
Yeah, it does not imply a dark, meaningless void. It specifically means empty of a permanent, independent, inherent self.
Wait, slow down. Let me push back on that, because saying there is no self or I don't exist sounds incredibly close to nihilism.
It's a common reaction.
If I don't exist, who is doing the dishes? Who is paying my mortgage? If there is no me, then none of my responsibilities matter. How does this not just lead to a complete breakdown of functioning in society?
That is the classic Western pushback, and it's a vital question. Let's look at it through the lens of a modern analogy.
Okay.
Think about a professional sports franchise,
Yeah.
right? Like the Chicago Bulls.
Okay, yeah, the Bulls.
You can be a diehard fan of the Chicago Bulls.
Yeah.
You can point to them, buy their merchandise, and watch them play. But if you look at the Bulls over a 30-year period...
Right, literally every single player has changed.
Exactly. Every player has changed. The coaching staff has changed. The owners might have changed. The stadium has been renovated. Even the threads in the jerseys are completely different.
So what you're asking is, where is the permanent Bowles entity in all of that?
Yes, precisely. Where is the permanent independent Bulls entity? It doesn't actually exist as a static object. The Chicago Bulls is just a convenient conceptual label we use to group together a constantly shifting set of causes, conditions, and personnel.
Ah, so it's a modernized ship of Theseus. The label stays the same, but the underlying reality is in constant flux.
Exactly. And yourself operates under the exact same mechanics.
Myself is the Chicago Bulls.
Basically, neurologically and psychologically, you are a localized collection of shifting phenomena. So
Mm.
your thoughts change, your cells regenerate, your beliefs evolve based on new information.
I am definitely not the same person I was 10 years ago.
Right. The problem, what the text calls upadana, or clinging, is that we treat ourself as a static, permanent object.
We cling to the label.
Yes. When a tragedy happens, we say, this is happening to me. We take ownership of the event and staple it to our identity.
We internalize the friction. We don't just say a failure occurred. We say, I am a failure.
Yes, the clinging to the idea of me and mine is the root of almost all complex psychological pain. Wow. But when you deeply internalize Dathata, when you see that the world is just an endless flow of causes generating effects, the illusion of ownership begins to evaporate.
You realize that events are just events.
They are happening in your vicinity, they're involving your physical and mental faculties,
Yeah.
but they do not define some permanent, eternal you that must be defended at all costs.
There is a quote from Buddhadasa Bhikkhu in the text that perfectly encapsulates this domino effect, and it's a massive philosophical statement.
Which one?
He says, the heart of Buddhism is Tathata. If you see Tathata, you see Dharma. If you see Dharma, you see the Buddha.
Yes, that's the one.
He is essentially arguing that understanding this one passive-aggressive slang phrase, it is what it is the key that unlocks the entire architecture of enlightenment.
It is a stunning progression of insight. Let's track the dominoes here.
Let's do it.
The first step is Tathata. It is what it is. You practice seeing the strict truth of cause and effect in your daily life. You recognize why the cake is salty?
You stop arguing with the ingredients.
Right. When you consistently see that reality clearly, the, quote, states you see Dharma.
And what does Dharma mean in this context?
In this specific context, Dharma means the fundamental underlying truth of nature. You transition from living in a delusion of how you wish the world operated, and you completely align your expectations with the physics of how it actually operates.
You accept the structural integrity of the universe.
Yes. And then the final domino falls. If you see Dharma, you see the Buddha.
So, becoming Buddha.
Well, the concept of the Buddha here doesn't necessarily mean the historical figure. It represents the ultimate awakened psychological state.
A mind that is utterly free from suffering.
Exactly. So the logic is airtight. When you see cause and effect, which is Tathata, you stop fighting reality, which is Dharma, that starves your ego of its need to cling to outcomes, which is Upadana.
And when that clinging ceases, what is left is sunyata emptiness.
A mind that has nothing left to aggressively defend. It is a state of profound dynamic peace.
That completely flips the standard self-help narrative on its head.
Doesn't it?
Most self-help is about building a stronger, more resilient self, so you can fight the universe and win. This is saying the ultimate resilience comes from realizing there is no static self to defend in the first place, so the universe's blows just pass right through you.
It is the difference between building a massive stone wall to block a tsunami, which will eventually crack under the pressure, versus simply being the empty space the wave crashes through.
Okay, this is undeniably profound, but I want to pivot into the practical application now.
Let's do it.
Because if you are listening to this on your commute or you are prepping for a highly contentious board meeting, you might be thinking, okay, achieving the awakened state of the Buddha sounds great for my 5-year plan, but how do I actually use this framework when my toddler is screaming, my boss just sent a passive-aggressive email, and I spilled coffee on my laptop?
Right, the Tuesday morning test.
Exactly. We need to operationalize this.
We do, and thankfully, the source material does not leave us hanging in the realm of abstract philosophy.
It gives us a toolkit.
A highly specific, 5-step, daily toolkit for applying Tathata to the friction of modern life.
Okay, let's walk through these 5 applications, starting with step 1, which the text refers to as the pause.
The mechanism for stopping impulsive emotions.
Right. Give me a scenario. Let's say you are stuck in a massive gridlocked traffic jam on the way to the airport, Or maybe you just hit reply all on an email with a massive typo that went to the entire executive team.
Of the absolute worst feeling.
Your heart rate spikes, your face gets hot. What is the immediate tactical application?
The tactical application is to use the phrase as an emergency brake. The absolute second you feel that physiological spike of panic or rage, you recite the mantra internally. It is what it is.
Just drop it right into the thought stream.
Yes. And we need to understand the neurology of why this works.
Tell me.
Because this is not about suppressing your emotions or pretending you aren't angry. It is about actively managing an amygdala hijack.
An amygdala hijack, what's that?
When a threat occurs, like realizing you just humiliated yourself on a company-wide email, your amygdala, which is the primitive fear center of your brain, completely takes over.
It floods your system with cortisol and adrenaline.
Exactly. It prompts a fight, flight, or freeze response. It wants you to lash out, panic, or desperately send a follow-up email making frantic excuses.
It's pure blind reaction.
Pure reaction.
Yeah.
But by deliberately injecting a logical, philosophical phrase into your working memory, it is what it is, you force your prefrontal cortex, the rational, analytical part of your brain, to power up and engage.
You create a vital, microscopic gap between the triggering event and your behavioral response.
Yes, you are redirecting the brain's computational power from generating blind panic to analyzing the causality of the situation.
So you transition from I'm an idiot and my life is over to, okay, what were the causes here? I was rushing, I didn't proofread, and the email sent. The conditions were met for a mistake.
You ground yourself in the mechanics.
You look at the traffic jam, and instead of screaming at the windshield, your prefrontal cortex says, it is what it is. It's 8 some a.m. on a Tuesday in a major metropolitan area, and there is construction on the bridge. The mathematical probability of gridlock is nearly 100%.
And the rage dissipates because the situation, while highly inconvenient, is entirely logical.
Which brings us directly to a closely related concept in step 2, radical acceptance.
One of the hardest steps.
Or, as the text describes it, accepting the truth so you can actually move forward. I think this is where we bleed the most energy as humans.
Oh, without a doubt.
Think about the sunk cost fallacy of emotional denial. The laptop is already broken, the flight is already delayed, the mistake has already been made, and yet we will spend 3 hours pacing around a room, internally screaming, this cannot be happening.
We treat reality like a customer service representative we can complain to until we get a refund.
That is painfully accurate.
We truly believe that if we are upset enough, the past will somehow alter itself.
That's exhausting.
It is entirely a waste of metabolic energy. Every ounce of focus you spend wishing reality was different is cognitive bandwidth. You are actively stealing from your ability to solve the problem in front of you.
So what's the application for step 2?
It's brutal, but deeply necessary. You must accept that the situation has already happened.
The milk is spilled, the physics have played out.
Yes. And the functional result of this radical acceptance is a massive influx of processing power.
How so?
Well, once your mind stops fighting the truth, once you drop the exhaustive task of maintaining the delusion that this shouldn't be happening, you free up all your mental RAM.
You stop drowning in the distraction of denial and you start utilizing wisdom.
Precisely. If the flight is delayed, screaming at the gate agent changes absolutely nothing.
It just makes everyone miserable.
Right, and it is a profound denial of reality and a misunderstanding of causes and conditions. The gate agent didn't cause the thunderstorm. Accepting the delay allows your brain to instantly pivot to logistics like, okay, what are my actual options based on current reality? Can I rebook on a partner airline? Should I secure a hotel room before they all book up? Can I jump on a train?
You are now operating as a highly effective agent within reality rather than a victim crying outside of it.
It's a night and day difference.
Okay, accepting that a flight is delayed makes sense because you are dealing with a faceless airline and a weather system. But let's look at step 3.
Lowering relationship expectations.
Yes. How does it is what it is apply when the cause of your suffering is a human being who is actively choosing to be difficult?
Yeah.
What happens when it's your spouse or like a deeply toxic boss?
This is undeniably the most difficult arena to apply to Thada because interpersonal dynamics are loaded with so much emotional history.
We carry so much baggage.
We walk around with deeply entrenched scripts in our heads about how people should behave. A partner should be anticipating our needs. A boss should be mentoring us patiently. A friend should be more supportive.
And when their actual behavior deviates from our script, we suffer.
We suffer immensely.
We take it incredibly personally. We assume their behavior is a direct commentary on our worth.
But the application of step 3 introduces a concept we might call behavioral determinism.
Behavioral determinism. Tell me more.
It asks you to look at your coworkers, your family members, the person cutting you off in traffic, and realize that their behavior is what it is.
Meaning what exactly?
Meaning their actions in this exact moment are the direct, logical result of their unique, lifelong accumulation of causes and conditions.
Wow.
Their behavior is the output of their upbringing, their genetic predispositions, the stress they are under today, and the coping mechanisms they developed in childhood.
They are a salty cake baked with extremely specific ingredients.
That is the perfect way to look at it. If you have a coworker who is deeply insecure and constantly lashes out or takes credit for your work in meetings, that behavior isn't fundamentally about you.
It feels like it's about me.
It feels that way, but it's not. It's the inevitable result of whatever past experiences, perhaps deeply painful ones, that formed that insecurity. It is what it is.
This is such a crucial nuance to highlight because applying this doesn't mean you just become a doormat.
No, absolutely not.
Doesn't mean you accept toxic or abusive behavior without setting firm boundaries or going to HR. What it does is remove the instinct to blame and demonize. It depersonalizes the conflict.
It removes the venom. You look at a difficult person, and instead of your brain saying, you are a malicious monster trying to destroy my day, your brain says, you are currently suffering from your own unresolved causes and conditions.
That shifts the whole dynamic.
It makes genuine empathy and eventually forgiveness infinitely easier because you see the heavy machinery driving their actions.
When conflict isn't personal, it becomes a puzzle to manage rather than a war to win.
Beautifully said.
All right, moving to step 4. The text calls this the golden rule. And we touched on this earlier regarding success, but the specific application here deals with imposter syndrome and ego.
Right. The tactical application is that when you hit a major milestone, when you sign the massive client, or when someone pays you a deep compliment, you consciously interject the mantra.
It is what it is.
Exactly. You don't let it inflate your identity.
You acknowledge the mechanism. You achieve the result because the correct causes were laid down.
You put in the 10,000 hours of practice.
You built the right relationships. You stayed up late refining the pitch. You validate the effort, but you do not attach the outcome to your permanent worth as a human being.
It keeps you grounded in the work rather than the reward.
And it mentally prepares you for the inevitable day when the conditions shift.
Because they always shift.
Success is a temporary arrangement.
Yeah.
By routinely acknowledging that, you can fully enjoy the warmth of this success while you have it, without becoming structurally dependent on it for your self-esteem.
Which brings us to the final step in the toolkit, step 5. And I need you to really unpack the mechanics here because on the surface, it sounds like a paradox.
Let's hear it.
The text calls it working with an empty mind. Yes.
How are you supposed to execute at a high level or do deep creative work if your mind is empty?
This step synthesizes the entire framework. Working with an empty mind does not mean working with a blank, spacey mind.
It's not daydreaming.
No. It means working with a mind that is entirely empty of attachment to the future outcome.
Ah, okay.
The application is this. You give 100% of your effort, focus, and energy to the action itself, to the cause. But you view the final result, the effect, as something that belongs to nature.
Or belongs to external market forces that are entirely beyond your jurisdiction.
Exactly.
So you pour your heart into writing a novel or coding a new piece of software or prepping for a massive job interview. You control every single variable you possibly can.
You refine the ingredients.
Right. But the absolute second you send that manuscript to the publisher, or you deploy the code, or you walk out of the interview room,
You sever the cord completely.
you drop the attachment to the outcome immediately.
You say, the result is what it is.
That is agonizingly difficult.
It's so hard.
We are biologically wired to obsess over the outcome. We check our email outbox every 4 minutes, waiting for the response. We constantly refresh the analytics dashboard.
We are wired that way. But let's look at the cognitive load theory behind why that obsession is so detrimental.
Okay, let's look at it.
Think of your working memory like RAM in a computer. You only have a finite amount of processing power available at any given moment.
Makes sense.
When you are agonizing over an outcome like, will they like my presentation? Will this startup fail? Will I get the promotion? You are allocating a massive percentage of your mental RAM to running simulations of a future you cannot control.
You are basically running heavy background apps that just drain your battery.
Exactly. Anxiety is a massive resource hog.
That's a great way to put it.
But when you apply step 5, when you genuinely let go of the outcome and say it is what it is, you close all those background apps.
You free up 100% of your cognitive resources.
And the text notes a deeply counterintuitive result. This actually radically increases your efficiency and the quality of your work.
Because all that RAM is now dedicated solely to the task at hand.
Yes. When you aren't paralyzed by the fear of a future failure, you can enter what psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi calls a flow state.
Being in the zone.
You become completely absorbed in the present action. You actually begin to enjoy the process of the work itself, rather than viewing the work merely as a painful toll you have to pay to reach a destination.
You are completely, deeply present in the cause and completely blissfully liberated from the effect.
It is the ultimate operational freedom.
Which brings us to the synthesis of this entire deep dive.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We really have. We have unpacked the strict physics of reality, the friction of human desire, the danger of the ego, the deeply misunderstood illusion of the self.
And a highly practical 5-step operational toolkit.
Yes, but Buddhadasa Bhikkhu manages to distill this entire sprawling philosophical architecture down into one incredibly sharp, crucial takeaway sentence.
It's brilliant.
It says, "Do the causes fully, then place your trust in the results." In Thai, the phrase is "Tum hete tum te la wang jai te phon."
Do the causes fully, then place your trust in the results. If we pull all the threads together for you, the listener, the reason this specific framework is so vital is because it threads the needle between two extremes.
What are the extremes?
Well, it doesn't ask you to retreat to a mountaintop and renounce the world. And it doesn't ask you to adopt a toxic hustle culture mindset where you believe you can conquer the universe by force.
It is a highly accessible middle path.
Exactly. It demands active, vigorous engagement with your life. You have to do the causes fully. You have to show up. You have to sweat. You have to build. You have to repair relationships.
But it pairs that massive physical and intellectual effort with total psychological freedom from the outcomes.
It gives you the ultimate permission slip to stop carrying the weight of the universe's mechanics on your own shoulders.
You meticulously manage the inputs, and you step back and let the universe handle the outputs.
It's an incredibly powerful way to navigate modern chaos.
It really is. But, as we always do, we are not going to just let you walk away with a comfortable passive summary.
No, we've got homework for you.
The source material ends with a direct provocation, and we want to hand that challenge directly to you. This is something to actively dismantle and examine while you're on your commute tomorrow or while you're lying awake tonight.
It's a diagnostic question. It forces you to test this ancient philosophy against the abrasive reality of your own current life.
Here's the final thought, pulled straight from the friction of the text. Look closely at your own life right now. Survey your career ambitions, your most difficult relationships, your deepest anxieties about the future.
Look at all of it.
In what specific, localized situation do you think applying Tathata, truly, radically accepting it is what it is, and entirely letting go of your demanded outcome would be the absolute hardest thing for you to do?
Where is the friction the hottest? Where are you fighting reality the most aggressively?
Find that specific spot, because that exact point of maximum resistance is exactly where you need to deploy this tool first.
That's where the work begins.
Thank you so much for joining us on this exploration today. Keep questioning your assumptions, keep rigorously examining the causes and conditions of your own life, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.